Thought on Sara Sharif, first of all.
I'm sure, like many of your viewers, I've really struggled to watch the news last night and this morning and to hear details of this case. This young girl, who very clearly had an amazing zest for life, suffered unspeakable, imaginable abuse at the hands, as you just said, of those who should have cared for her. And while I think it's absolutely right, obviously, that her father, the stepmother, were brought to justice, there are wider lessons that need to be learned. I understand there's a local children's safeguarding review that will get underway soon. I won't speculate on any wider reviews or inquiries at this time. But the government are taking steps to ensure already that no children fall through the cracks. We're introducing landmark reforms to overhaul children's services, including mandating multi-agency teams at a local level and looking at how we can increase protections on homeschooling so that can be never used to conceal abuse.
It's happened many times before. It is a broken system. Do you acknowledge that?
I think the system is faltering clearly. This is not an isolated case. Many hundreds of examples of children facing horrific abuse, violence that happen too often. I know we'll engage very seriously with any recommendations that the Children's Commissioner makes. As I've said, we're already taking action in a number of areas. In the King's Speech, we announced that we'll be introducing a children's wellbeing bill where some of these issues, particularly around issues like homeschooling, will be looked at.
Yeah, indeed so. Talk to me about your brief. How are you planning to change planning?
Well, as you know, Kay, we've got an acute and entrenched housing crisis in England. It is blighting lives across the country. It is holding back our economy. And while it's not the only answer to that, overhauling our faltering, ailing planning system is part of the solution. And that's what we're doing today. We're delivering on the change we promised. As you know, within a month of coming into office, we consulted on a bold set of reforms to that National Planning Policy Framework. Later today, we'll be introducing the final version. But it will touch on many of the issues we consulted on. Mandatory higher housing targets, how we release low-quality grey belt land within the green belt. And
what is grey belt? It's a new colour, I've learned.
It's a new colour. Well, what we're trying to get at through the designation of grey belt as a new category of land, and we put forward a definition in July, and we've listened to feedback about whether that definition is right, is that we know that in the green belt there are lots of parcels of land that are very poorly performing against the purposes of the green belt. Green belt's been incredibly effective. We want to protect it in terms, in particular, of stopping unrestricted urban sprawl. There are lots of parcels of land, disused petrol stations, abandoned car parks, low-quality scrubland, don't make a great contribution to the green belt's purposes. And what we're saying to local areas is, in instances where you have exhausted all of your previously developed brownfield land, you should look to release this land to meet housing need, because we have to have a conversation, given that acute and entrenched crisis I've just mentioned, about how we build the homes we need, not whether we do so. And I think this is a fundamental difference of opinion with some across the country. We are absolutely determined to have a housing and planning system geared towards meeting housing need in full, because the current situation is blighting lives across the country. Not least, and I think this shames us as a nation, the fact that we've now got 160,000 homeless children living in temporary accommodation this Christmas.
Everybody agrees we need more houses. You've set yourself an ambitious target of 300,000 net additional homes.
Not a year, no.
Per year. So tell me then.
Well, we set very deliberately a target of 1.5 million new homes over the Parliament.
OK, so that breaks down to 300,000 a year, but you're not going to do it that way.
Well, and I'll tell you why. Because as a result of changes the previous government made to national planning policy to allow councils to build less homes than their nominal target would suggest, we're now in a situation where supply has collapsed. Projections put supply at less than 200,000 homes this coming year. So we're in a trough, and we've got a steep climb out of that trough. So it's not as simple as to say we're going to do 300,000 every year. And that's why we deliberately picked that 1.5 million target. We're not putting a number on it as we come out. We're in a really difficult situation. We've got to pull ourselves out of that trough, reforming the planning system, the additional £500 million we secured in the budget for the Affordable Homes Programme. All of these measures are designed to quickly pull us out of that trough and get us on a very steep trajectory to meet that 1.5 million target across the 5 years of the Parliament.
Looking at the latest figures, net additions would need to increase by more than 50% to around 76,300 every 3 months to hit targets. You're saying you won't be able to do that in the first year. So it's going to be significantly more than that in the coming years in order for you to be able to hit that target?
You're absolutely right. In the later years of this Parliament, we will be on a trajectory of much higher housing numbers. If all of our reforms are accepted, if they work, if they start to bed in, that is the trajectory we're looking at. Because, as I said, we've got to pull ourselves out of this trough. And I put the alternative to you. We could have picked a far less ambitious target. Previous government had a target of 1 million homes. We could have done that. Could have said that's enough, that's good enough.
They didn't meet that target
They
either.
didn't just meet that target, but the nature of the housing crisis is such we've got to stretch ourselves here. We've been nothing but entirely candid. This is an incredibly stretching target, but it's achievable.
Good for you, but only one of 50 house building firms think you can actually meet that target.
Well,
only one, and you need them to build them for you.
And all of the volume house builders and many SME house builders signed up to a statement when we released these proposals back in July that said they want to work with us to do them. And we've played our part in that. We're going to announce later today that overhauled national planning policy framework. We do need others to step up. We need developers to step up, bring forward sites and to build those sites out at pace. We need local authorities to match our ambition, start allocating sites and allow their planning systems to let those homes through.
This is what the Home Builders Federation says. Builders can only build if buyers can buy.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we've announced, as you may recall, in our manifesto, measures to help first-time buyers, not least a permanent and comprehensive mortgage guarantee scheme. That is part of the answer. Large numbers of social and affordable homes are also part of the answer, which is why we're committed to delivering the biggest increase in them in a generation.
OK. There's a belief, according to the latest figures that I'm reading, this is according to Savills, the estate agents, upmarket estate agents, they're saying there's a belief you'll miss your targets by a third.
I don't accept that. I don't accept that. And I come back to the point I said before.
They don't know what they're talking about?
They know what they're talking about, and there's lots of assumptions in their analysis, as there are in other bits of analysis. I look at our internal analysis as well. This is, if you like, a set menu, not an a la carte menu. We've got to get reforms in place. We've got to get many other measures in place. But I'm confident that we can meet that target. It is stretching. We know that. We've never been anything other than entirely candid about that fact. We think it is achievable. But we need all parts of the system, developers, local authorities and others, to work with us to meet that target. It's got to be about how we build these homes, not whether we build them, because there are people out there, as I say, desperate for a decent, safe, secure and affordable home in which to live.
I listened to what you're saying, Minister, and then I also listened to the Deputy Prime Minister speaking to my buddy Trevor at the weekend, and she was saying that there was plenty of housing in regard to migrant housing. So I'm a bit confused.
Well, migrants of different kinds lived in different types of homes. I don't think it's... I recall seeing the interview with Trevor at the weekend. I think it's far too simplistic to say net migration is X, so 5 in 7 homes you're building are for migrants. It doesn't work like that. Migration is one of many factors that impact on housing demand.
She said there's plenty of housing
supply.
for migrants. That's what she said.
There's a separate conversation about how migrants are housed and how we deal with that, specific challenges around that. We're talking here about building homes for first-time buyers. I don't know many migrants who are coming in and building first-time homes of the kind that will come online through our reforms.
But
We're
lots
talking
of
about
people can't afford them.
social and affordable homes.
You said you couldn't, but a lot of people can't afford it, so that's why you're helping them with their first-time purchases. Are you not going to help migrants do that?
Well, I think that the issue of migration, where migrants are housed, how we move them out of hotels, etc., over the medium to long term.
Where are you going to put them?
We'll come forward with solutions to that, into different types of accommodation. And some migrants,
so not these houses that
legal migrants are obviously in the private rented sector. Some may have been able to buy homes. I think it's far too simplistic to say, a proportion of your homes are going to migrants and it works like that. But we're talking about in the round. We've got to have a planning system that plans for the homes we need for our population, those living here today, those who will come in the future.
Migrants.
Including legal migrants who come to the country. Illegal migration is a different issue. We need to bear down on both. We've been very clear that legal and illegal migration needs to be reduced. But if you take a step back, it's the duty of government to plan for the homes of the population in the country as it stands today, as we deal with those pressures around legal and illegal migration.
So what's going to happen to those 2.5 million legal migrants that are projected to come to the UK?
Oh, they will need homes to live in if they've got a legal right.
For them.
If they've got a legal right to stay in the country, of course they can buy a home if they're in a position to do so. Of course they can rent a home.
Why did the Prime Minister say there was loads of housing for them? I don't understand.
I think you're conflating two different issues.
Okay.
There's illegal migration and how recently arrived migrants are housed and the particular types of accommodation they can access. There's those who have an absolute right to remain.
I was talking about legal migrants.
There's those who have a right to remain in the country and to work and they will access various forms of housing. But we've got a plan for the homes that our population needs in the country as things stand today.
Final thought, is £70,000 enough compensation for LGBT veterans, given the way they were treated?
This is a historic wrong that needs righting, and as you'll know, the compensation was originally at £50,000. We've reviewed that. We think it should increase. We think that's the right thing to do to right this historic wrong, and it's part of a much wider set of reforms that we are introducing as a government to ensure that we honour the service and sacrifice of veterans. I know in my own area, for example, we have loosened the restrictions on whether veterans can access social housing to ensure that every veteran in need is able to do so.
So 70,000 is enough?
We think 70,000 is the right amount of compensation, yes.
OK. I must let you go, Minister. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.